welcome to this week's edition of A Walk in My Shoes. I'm your host, Rachel Perez, and today our special guest is James Dewhurst, who is a pastor. Hi, James, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Rachel. I just want to thank everybody for hopping on and checking this out and maybe watching it later in the week. I hope that maybe I say some cool things and some interesting things that might want you to consider a field in the ministry. So, hello, great to see you, and hopefully we have a wonderful time together.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So the first question is to describe your role slash position. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because there's many things that you do, and I'll explain some of those. But I would say the best definition of what I do as a pastor, the Bible actually defines it as a shepherd, right? And so basically, if you would think maybe of a shepherd watching sheep, a pastor's job is to look over people and to care for them and to watch out for them and try to protect them and help them. So that's really kind of the main role of a pastor. There's a bunch of things they do, but the overarching answer is a shepherd.
Okay, that's awesome. So what does your typical week look like?
Well, I will say for those of you that love to have like a different week every week, the cool part about this job is you do some of the things you do are the same, but there's a lot of things that you do that are completely different every single week. So it's never boring. It's typically full of adventure and excitement. Sometimes surprises that you don't always want. But the biggest and best answer, and then I'll give you some details. The biggest and best answer is I help people every week. That's my job, is to help people. And sometimes, almost every week I write sermons and preach them on Sundays, and those are basically teachings to help people make good decisions and um, live good lives and try to honor God. Um, Another thing I do is set like vision or direction. I got to have ideas for the church to know what to do and where to go, and so I have to have some vision. Plan events. We do lots of events at the church, so I'm part of planning special events a lot. Um, Handling emergencies. Lots of people have emergencies, whether it's a car accident and they're in the hospital, or somebody's sick, or somebody's going through a really hard time. A lot of times I'll get phone calls or messages in the middle of the night even to help handle emergencies. Manage staff. If you have people on your staff, we'll get into that in a little bit. That's a piece. Handling conflicts is something that I do on a day-to-day basis. So people aren't getting along with each other, or people that are married, or kids with their parents, or whatever. So handling conflict is a big one. Giving people advice. Officiate weddings and funerals. That's a big one. So lots of people like to get married, and unfortunately, when people get older, they pass away. And so I handle funerals and weddings. And I also do lots of hospital visits, when babies are born, or when someone's not doing well, and they say, hey, this person has a few days to live, would you come up and pray for them? And so I do that kind of stuff. So a bunch of different things, Rachel.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot, but that's awesome. So what does your team look like and how many people?
So our team is made up of some full-time paid people, some part-time paid people, and then a lot of volunteers. Um, and so our paid people in the church, I think there's about eight or so, maybe 10, that are paid, like actually get a paycheck. I'd say half of those are full-time, half of those are part-time. And then we've got about 100 or so volunteers that volunteer like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to help us run everything at the church and get everything done. So yeah, so we got kind of different tiers of people that serve in different areas.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So how did you get to where you are today?
Um, well, I would love to say I chose it, but it chose me. I was planning on being like a professional musician, and then getting into
Okay.
business, like being in the business field. That was kind of those were kind of my thoughts. Um, but my phone started ringing, and the church came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to be a pastor," and they wanted me to be a youth pastor. So I started as a youth pastor working with kids and teenagers, and my wife and I love kids and we love teenagers and we love college people. And so I started out doing that for a long time, about 15 years. And then about 8 years ago, kind of shifted over to actually pastoring a whole church with adults and teenagers and kids and everybody. So,
Wow. That's awesome. That was definitely, like, not expected if you
no, it
were
was,
expecting to go into business.
yeah, yeah.
So is this what you thought you would do in school or no?
Well, I started going to Bible college when the church asked me, that I was growing up in. The church asked me to come on staff. So I started going to Bible college because they asked me to do this, and I figured I needed to know something. So by the time I started school, I kind of already knew that this was kind of the road I was supposed to go on, even though I didn't really want to go on it.
Okay. Wow. So is this your dream job or what you would consider such?
I would say that's a great question. I mean, running a running a surf shop on the beach is probably my dream job, but but no, this is honestly, this is probably what I love would love to do the most, because of who I am and how I'm built. I think helping people in any capacity would be my dream job, and getting to do this for a church, I think, is really a great privilege.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What education do you have?
So, I have a associate's degree in practical theology, a 4-year counseling degree in Christian counseling, and then I have a master's degree in practical theology. So I have three degrees. I just kind of got them slowly over time.
Okay. Do you need a degree to go into this field of work?
No, to be completely honest with you, you don't need a degree to do this. Now, saying that, there are certain denominations or affiliations that would require degrees or schooling to be a like lead pastor or a senior pastor. But there are a lot of independent churches that don't have any requirements at all. Literally, a person could say, I want to start a church tomorrow, and they could open up their house and start, or they could open up a rec center or rent a rec center. So you don't have to have education to do this. But I will say that if you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't understand what you're teaching, um, it will probably make it very difficult to be successful.
Yeah. Yes, I can agree. Are there a lot of requirements to start your own church?
Yeah, the requirements really, it depends on if you're doing it like independently on your own or if you're going to be a part of an organization. So, like for us to start the church that we started, we had to go through background checks, federal background checks. They had to check our credit, to make sure that we managed our own finances well, that we didn't have lots of debt. They basically did a bunch of character references. They found out who we were as people, before they would ever like give us the approval to start a church. And I think that's good because it protects the people that are going to come to your church, to make sure that you're like a law-abiding person, that you are who you say you are. If you're really bad at managing money and you've got a bunch of debt and your personal life's falling apart, then like how could you manage a church successfully? So they want to make
Right.
sure that you got your life in order.
Okay. All right. Where did you grow up and were you ever involved in any extracurricular activities at school?
Yes, I grew up here in Columbus, Ohio, and hold on, let me go to the note. I had a yawn kicking. So I grew up here in Columbus, Ohio, and I was involved in all kind of things. I played soccer and basketball, and I was in plays and productions, and pretty much anything extra I could do, I was doing it all the time. I went to a Christian school called Liberty Christian Academy, and just try to do lots of extra things, just to be a part with other people. I think if you're a social person and you love people, then you want to do things to be around people. So I did lots of that stuff.
Right.
I was a competitive person.
That's awesome. So were you an extrovert or an introvert growing up? I'm assuming extrovert.
Yeah, you would have a very fair assumption right there, Rachel. I think I was always pretty much an extrovert growing up. So, and the difference for anybody watching that doesn't know the difference, introverts typically hold all their feelings inside and they kind of stay to themselves, right? Extroverts, you kind of know exactly how they're feeling and what their mood is all of the time because whatever they feel and think, they're kind of showing the world around them with their personality.
Yeah.
So I would say, for the most part, I'm an extrovert.
Okay. Is being an extrovert a trait that every pastor should have, or can pastors be introverts?
That's a fantastic question, Rachel. So the cool part about the ministry, which is very similar to any field, is any personality can be successful um, in the ministry, right? You can have an introvert or an extrovert. The difference is this: you just have to put people around you that are really good at what you're not good at. So, I worked at a church for years with a pastor who was an introvert. So, in other words, after church, through the week, he didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to see anybody. He just, he didn't like being around people so much because he was an introvert, but he was really good at teaching and he was really, really smart. So what he needed to do was put a bunch of people on staff at the church that were really good with people because he wasn't so much. Um, the way I'm built, because I'm a people person and I want to talk to people all the time and help people all the time, and I always want to be around people. I need to put a lot of people around me or at the church that are really good at details and organization and scheduling and
Gotcha.
helping me stay on task because
Yeah,
that's just not really who I am. I try to be sometimes, but I'm not awesome at it.
that's awesome. So, what obstacles have you faced while in this position, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I would love to say that the obstacles are over. I would say that there are lots of obstacles. They kind of, there's new obstacles all the time. Um, I will say in the past to this point, some of the obstacles we face when you start a church from scratch, it's just like starting a business. You face financial obstacles, right? Are we going to be able to pay the bills? Will there be enough money come in to support the people that help work and everything? And we prayed and asked God, and we taught people about being generous and how that's important. And just by doing those two things, and then my wife and I also give. We're generous ourselves, and so by doing those three things, we feel like God has blessed the church. And so that was a big obstacle, an obstacle of having enough people. Are people going to come, right? And we
Right,
didn't know if anybody was coming. And so we started inviting people and knocking on doors and passing out gifts and doing whatever we could to get people to come. I think another obstacle, which is always challenging, is making people happy. Um, Everybody wants something from you, and you're only one person and you can only do so much, but everybody wants something. So it's impossible to keep hundreds and hundreds of people happy all the time. Even your staff and the people that work with you, at the end of the day, they want something for themselves, right? And
right.
we understand that. So one of the great obstacles is trying to keep everybody happy, um, which is really tough. And at the end of the day, You have to decide just to be who you are and do the best that you can, and you know, trust that everything else works out because you got to
Right.
trust God.
Yeah. Awesome. How did COVID affect your church?
That's a great question. Well, we didn't like COVID very much. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody did. But when COVID kind of struck, we had about 4 or 5 days to plan because we got word that early in the week that we were not going to be able to have church on Sunday because all the churches and all the businesses were shutting down in March of 2020. And so we instantly had to go online only and, invest money in our cameras and buy more cameras and make everything better online. And for 3 months, um, we didn't see any people in person really. Uh, that was hard. It was hard relationally. It was hard, in a lot of different ways. But we just kept, doing the service each week online and inviting people to watch. And Rachel, I would love to tell you that it hurt our church, because I know it's hurt a lot of places, but to be honest with you, I think it helped our church. I think people came back after we opened back up and they were super thankful to see people and they were super thankful for things they had taken for granted. People became more generous, not less generous. So I
Wow,
think it's had some really good effects.
that's awesome. That's a good perspective. Wow. What is your favorite part about your job?
Favorite part about my job is being around people, meeting with people, listening to people's stories, encouraging people, spending time with people. I love people. And I also love studying the Bible. There's so many wonderful things in the Bible that are encouraging. And I love getting to share things that help people in life. And so those are my two favorite things.
Awesome. So, whenever you're put in awkward situations, how do you get past them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I find myself in lots of awkward situations. Um, Sometimes at hospitals, when you go to visit people, you never know what you're going to walk into in a hospital room.
Right.
Um, yeah, you don't know. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes you're at a wedding and you're trying to be the pastor who's officiating the wedding, and the bride's family's not getting along with the groom's family, and there's a lot of drama and you have
Ooh,
to work it out. Sometimes you're at a funeral and there's, a really, really tough situation. So what I try to do, this is how I work through it. I try to think to myself, um, what would I want somebody to do for me if I was in this situation? How would I want them to help me? And then I try to do for other people what I think I would want most myself. So I try to be comforting. I try to calm everything down. I try to be a peacemaker. Um, I try to make people not feel bad. Like sometimes a bride or a groom, their family's not getting along, and then the bride who's supposed to be thinking about getting married is like, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "Nope.
right.
You go
Yeah,
get your makeup on. You go look pretty. I'll deal with all the problems. You get ready for your wedding day." So I try really, really hard to take pressure off of people in awkward situations. And sometimes
that's
I
good.
don't even know what to do, and I just go with my gut.
That's awesome. So, in your opinion, what skills do you think people need to have to go into this profession?
That's a great question. I think number one, most important, is they need to be people who have faith and believe in God, because you can't be a pastor that teaches from the Bible if you don't believe in Jesus Christ and the fact that he died, was buried, and rose again on the cross on the third day after he was buried, and rose to forgive our sins. So you have to believe in Jesus Christ. The second thing you have to do is you have to care about people. I think if you don't care about people, then you should not go into this field because it's all about helping people. That's the most important thing there. And then I think you need to be pretty good or at least decent at communicating to people. Um, people go to churches so they can hear something and they can be motivated and encouraged. And so if you don't have any desire to communicate, it's going to be hard for them to listen and learn and grow. So you got to really make it fun for them and encouraging for them.
That's good. So, do you ever struggle living out anything that you would preach in a sermon?
Yes, that is a fantastic, fantastic question. Yeah. So that's one of the hardest things about being a pastor, is sometimes you have to preach a message and you're not that good at what you're talking about. So what I try to do, whenever that's true, I try to tell the church, "Hey, listen, I'm not good at this either," or "I'm still growing in this," or "I'm trying to figure this out myself," right? And I think what that does is helps people understand that you're human, right? And then B, it keeps you from kind of being a hypocrite in front of people, right? Because you don't want to say like you need
Oh,
to do this, but then I don't do it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I would say one of the greatest challenges that I have, and I was actually doing this last night late, was I worry and carry lots of stress and pressure for lots of things, and I don't pray about it enough. And one of the things I teach people and encourage people to do is pray. Take your burdens to God and give them to Him. And I don't do that well enough. That's one of the big struggles that I have to always work on. I was up late last night praying and giving all my burdens to God
Wow,
that I was worried about, because you have to make that a discipline in your life.
that's good. That's awesome. So, in your opinion, how important do you think public speaking is? And if you were to not be so good at public speaking, is that something that you could develop later on?
Yeah, so I think public speaking is enormous. If you think about classrooms all across America, universities all across America, um, fundraisers all across America, politics all across America, churches, right? All of those things center around a communicator who has a message that they want to get across to people. They want to motivate or teach people, right? So, public speaking is never going to expire, it's never going to disappear. There's something wonderful about hearing someone else teach you creatively or inspire you. So I think that is huge, right? And then your second part was, is it something you can develop 100%? Um, I don't consider myself amazing. I think I can get better all the time, but I'm a whole lot better than I started. And there are a lot of people, you may be sitting there going, I love people and I would love to do that. Well, guess what? You just practice, right? You want to practice. So sometimes you can find places where you could talk or share or look for opportunities, right? To speak at small things to get over your fear. Cause that's like I think it's the number one fear of people in America is public speaking, right? So you've got to look for ways to overcome your fear. And then the second thing is, Rachel, and this is huge, you can watch yourself on video and you can play it back and like listen to yourself and see how your facial expressions are and stuff like that, just to try to grow and get better at it.
That's good. That's really good. So, do you guys have virtual church since COVID hit?
Yes, we have both. We have
Okay.
in-person church and virtual church, so people can do either. They can watch online from home, or they can come to church. Most of the people, I think, are coming back to church by now. Some still
Okay.
watch online, and we're good either way. We just want people to feel comfortable and safe and come to church, whether it's through their computer or through their car. We want them to come to church.
Yeah. That's awesome. Is it hard to keep up with the virtual side of things?
Yeah, I think things are changing all the time. And then one of the great challenges too is um, the platforms that you have to be on, you're depending a lot of times on other people. So keeping it up, keeping the music sounding good, keeping all the technicalities working, and then like if a platform like YouTube or Facebook has issues or they go down, then you go down because you're depending upon them. And so sometimes those are great
Right.
challenges, that limit you or sometimes can cause problems.
That's good. So do you have different teams within the church that are responsible for those things?
Yes, we do. We have sound people that mix all the sound. We have video people that do all the videos. Actually, Rachel's dad's one of those people. He's in charge of it. And we have people that do lighting and just people that set it up and tear it down and plug it in and just do all those kind of things. So yes, we have lots of different people.
That's awesome. Um, so is there anything that you wish you learned in school that you had to learn later on?
That is a wonderful, wonderful question. So, something I learned that I wish I would have learned in school. So, Bible college or seminary teaches you about the Bible. It doesn't teach you how to handle conflicts, raise money, deal with people. None of that stuff is in school. 0%. So, what you have to do is you have to learn the other parts, motivating people, encouraging people, whatever. You have to handling people. You have to learn all that on your own. And sometimes the best lessons are mistakes. And one of the greatest truths is something that you do is not a mistake unless you didn't learn from it, right? It's a growth opportunity. So sometimes in handling people, maybe there's a conflict or something doesn't work out or something falls apart. If you learn a lesson so you're better next time, then it's not really a mistake. It's a lesson to grow and to grow you up. So handling people, I would say, yeah, that would be real. That would have been nice to know all those dynamics in school, but they don't
I'm
they don't teach
sure.
you any of
I'm sure. So for you, was learning the Bible hard? Did you have to study the whole entire Bible in school?
So, I've read the Bible cover to cover multiple times. In school, basically, like, when you're getting a degree, they put you on a path to kind of teach you different aspects of the Bible. So I had to study Old Testament survey and understand kind of the thread of all of the Old Testament. And then you had New Testament survey, and then you learn all about the New Testament and what it means and what the theme is. And understanding that all of the Old Testament points to Jesus coming and being born and dying on the cross. And then all of the New Testament points to telling about Jesus dying on the cross for people's sins. So that's really kind of the thrust. And so learning all that, all the other stuff kind of points to that. But yeah, there's some hard classes, and then learning. A lot of people don't understand that most of our history. If you go back to history thousands of years ago, the Bible keeps some of the best records from genealogies that tell us about world history. And so you really can't have accurate world history unless you go to the Bible. And so it's really some really neat stuff to learn.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for you, how do you typically prepare for your sermons, or how do you even write your sermons?
So I sit down. A lot of times we do a series each month. So sometimes
Okay.
it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and we'll try to talk about the same topic or the same theme, but like different angles. And so, um, I'll sit down at the beginning of the series. I'll try to write down the topics I feel like I want to hit or the things I want to talk about, and then each week I'll try to expand on those, and then I'll sit down and just gather all the scriptures that I think talk about that, gather some stories in the Bible, and just do the best that I can to help everybody really clearly understand, what to do in that situation or how to grow in this area or whatever. and I try to make it super, super clear so people aren't confused. Like they don't leave and go, I don't know what he talked about because he rambled.
Right.
I want everybody to go,
Yeah,
he talked about this all the way through, and we know what the message was.
that's good. How long does it take you to typically write your sermons?
Uh, to be honest with you, I would say usually I spend about 2.5 days every week on sermon writing. So yeah,
Okay,
sometimes 15 to 20 hours of like research, studying, thinking, changing, adjusting, all that kind of stuff.
that's awesome. That's really cool. What has been one of your favorite topics that you've preached on?
Oh, wow, wow, wow. Okay, I got one. We did a series during COVID on emotions, and we talked about
Okay,
how emotions can really, kind of control your life if you're not careful. And we talked about the fact that emotions, are great servants, but they're terrible masters. And so, in other words, your emotions should never be in charge of your life. Your emotions should follow your choices and decisions. A lot of times, people make decisions based upon what they feel, and so teaching people that your emotions, if you, I don't feel like going to work today, I don't feel like going to school today, I don't feel like jumping on CLC and learning and growing, right, or learning this language, I don't feel. And so if you spend your life letting your emotion be your master, you'll never grow up, you'll never mature, you'll never become successful. But if you say, I know I should jump online at CLC and learn this language or develop in this area or get that tutoring or get that help or go to college, then if you establish that truth, then that truth helps you tell your emotions. It doesn't matter what I feel right now. I'm going to do what I know is right. And then my feelings are going to follow.
that's awesome. Wow, that's deep. That's really good. So I just have one last question. And it's been so nice getting to hear what life is like as a pastor. That's really cool, and definitely it takes a lot more work than I thought. So our last question is: do you have any advice for any youth or anybody in general that would want to go into this profession, or just advice in general to anybody who would be watching?
Well, that's a great question. And I would just say to anybody out there, getting to be a pastor is one of the greatest privileges in the whole world because you get to be there when people are the happiest. You get to be there when people hurt the most. You get to be there when people have the biggest questions of their life that they need help with. You get to be there to celebrate people's greatest successes. You get to be there to help people pick up the pieces to some of their greatest failures in life. And if you care about people and if you want to be able to make a difference in the life of someone else, I cannot think of a better job than you can have, because being a pastor gives you the platform to make a difference in the life of somebody else. And you get to do it every single day. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it's discouraging and disappointing. But the big picture is really awesome. And I would super encourage you to at least consider it or think about it, because everybody needs help. There's a lot of sad and depressed and discouraged people in our world, and pastors um, that do their job well really try to encourage and lift people up so that they can let all that sadness go away.
That's awesome. That's really good. Well, thank you so much, James, for sharing. I've loved getting to hear your story and a little bit about you. So thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching today. We hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you. And make sure to tune in next week to see a new edition of A Walk in My Shoes. Bye.